this is maybe a silly question, but I want to hear what your thoughts on this are. So there's all these largely probably bullshit Eichel rumors going around. Fluto had a piece that basically said that if the Bruins were going to trade for Eichel, which a lot of people think that they're going to try to, which I really don't. It doesn't seem like it's not a Bruins type of move. That the starting point would have to include, and not just even a 1v1, but include either Pastrnak or McAvoy. Would you do either of those things?
No. Like, what does Eichel do that replaces either of those two? Like, McAvoy is a unicorn right now in terms of like a young guy who is matchups and is physical and can also get involved offensively. He's maybe not the power play quarterback that some other top defensemen are, but he's decent enough at it. But he brings in a package that's like incredibly rare. And he's currently under pretty good team control, and he's up for a new contract shortly. But it shouldn't be, it'll be a lot, but it won't be egregious. Eichel's contract is massive, first of all. Like, is it worth it? We could argue about that, but it's massive. Pastrnak is under team control for a bit longer as well, at a better rate than Eichel, although I think he'll eventually get paid better than Eichel because I think he's better. I think he's more dynamic. He's not a center. That's the one thing people will say about Eichel is he's a center. Centers are such an important position. Dude, Pastrnak is amongst who else? There's Matthews and Ovechkin, right? Who else has scored like him in the last couple of years? Maybe Stamkos a couple of years ago when he wasn't injured, but not anymore, between his injuries and where he's at in his career. Like, who else would you put in that goal scoring category? And scoring goals is the hardest thing to do in the NHL, right? You see goalies, I think goaltending is really hard in a special position, but you see goalies popping up all the time, right? How often do you see potential Rocket Richard winners popping up and staying there consistently? It is so rare. And if you're willing to give that up, you're dumb, right? It's so irreplaceable. Eichel, sure, a top center is huge. Your Bergeron is aging. It might be nice to have a top center. Krejci's aging. It might be nice to have a top center. Coyle is not exactly young either, but I think your chances of going and buying that on the free agent market or somewhere else down the road when you need it, it's easier to find than it is to find a David Pastrnak or a Charlie McAvoy.
Yeah, I would agree with pretty much all those points. I think the sexiness is that he's a center, and also just that he's been this huge name since before he was in the league.
And he's local.
So he's a hell of a player. Like, there's no denying that, but he has played a comparable amount of games to Pastrnak. It's only like 30 less or so, and Pastrnak has a little bit better production. He's got playoff experience. He's more accomplished. Granted, he's played with a better supporting cast, but
he's done it. You know he can.
Right. You know that he can, and he doesn't seem to be showing any signs of slowing down. Eichel has had good seasons. Last season looked like he was really finally putting it together, and now he's not having a great year this year. He also, like, you look at the draft year and you could think, oh, he's a year younger. He's only 5 months younger than Pastrnak. Pastrnak has a really late birthday. And yeah, it's really hard to find guys like Eichel. It's also really hard to find guys like Pastrnak. McAvoy, I would not trade either of these players for Jack Eichel, but if I had to, it would be Pastrnak, because the team will certainly be weaker without Pastrnak, but the team will survive without Pastrnak, especially if you are getting Eichel back. The team will not survive without Charlie McAvoy. There is absolutely nothing that can replace anything that he brings at this point. He's, like you said, he's a unicorn. Like, you don't find players like him, but they also don't have the depth to fill any of that if he's gone. That's why he's had, like, knock on wood, he has taken a lot of real big hits this year, and I keep, especially with everyone else that keeps getting hurt on the back end, I'm like, oh boy, if Charlie goes out, really going to be having some issues here. But
we might need to edit that line out, Ryan, just to make sure that it doesn't, once it's out there in the ether, you don't jinx him.
Oh, he probably just fell down the stairs.
Slipped on the ice walking out of his car.
Had an Adam McQuaid injury and tripped on a suitcase.
Corey Crawford injury, although hopefully not a Corey Crawford injury, because I've had some rumors about what those are really about. So
yeah, but yeah, fun discussions. But like, you're nuts if you think that's happening.
Yeah. I usually honestly try to avoid those ones on the internet. It was interesting to see someone like Fluto writing about that. I'm assuming it was an off day and he needed something that was going to get some clicks.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is like, here's why I don't think Eichel will be traded, even though the rumors just keep sitting out there. Is that's the package you need to get if you were the Sabres. You need to get a player like a Pastrnak or a McAvoy back for Eichel for it to make any sense, because they cannot afford to have another situation like the Ryan O'Reilly trade, where you got a lot of guys that their value added up to seemingly equal value, but they were really just spare parts, and it did not fix the team. And this is a team that's been floundering for so long, and the only real bright spot other than maybe Dahlin is Eichel. If this team is bad now, if you trade him for like 4 or 5 like prospects and or like middle 6 guys, they're gonna be even worse.
Yeah, you can't restart your rebuild again for like the 4th time in the last 8 years or however long it's been for Buffalo. You just can't. You can't do that to the fan base. You have a guy already that you think is a cornerstone, is a build around guy. Unless he forces Buffalo's hands, which has been interesting to see people suggesting he might be thinking about or doing. And I think a lot of that is just people saying, he should go. I don't know that that's necessarily him, although maybe they're hearing things being insiders that we don't, being outsiders. But yeah, why would you get rid of your cornerstone piece? Unless he has some character flaws, buyer beware character flaws, or he's forcing the Sabres' hands. You have a franchise player. You have a franchise that needs to get built around a franchise player. Why would you get rid of your franchise player and need to find another one? That just seems silly to me. So I don't quite know what's going on there, and maybe there's more to the story, but on the surface level, it just seems like you'd be moving substantially backwards there.